Great, let's dive right in. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 7th Platform and Treasury Council recurring meeting. Today is February 6th, 2025, 9 p.m. UTC. So, on the agenda tonight, we have quite a bit to go through, so we'll dive right in. First and foremost, I want to open with welcoming everybody. Today's agenda covers TIP and TELIP proposals. As a reminder, the recurring meetings serve several critical functions. They provide transparency to our community. They create structure for the forum and discussing proposals. They enable proposers to present ideas to the councils. They allow the community to hear and see and discuss, debate, and refine these proposals. They provide a medium for regular platform updates. They ensure consistent communication between council members, and they allow direct community engagement through questions and answers. I also want to reiterate that the Platform and Treasury Councils represent our global governance layer for Telcoin Platform and Association. Together, these councils oversee platform-wide systems, association social policies, and they manage the Tel Treasury. The primary duties of the platform governance system, as self-organized and determined by the 4 minor groups and their elected councils within the association, for all councils, are to first provision, which would be planning and financing platform infrastructure construction and maintenance, and provide information and any other sort of collective good. The second responsibility is to allocate TEL, and that is regulated TEL, and the goal is to be sustainable within the platform, so the minor groups can harvest based on their production according to these rules that are set by the councils, managed by the councils, and yes. As council members, our key responsibilities are reviewing and voting on snapshot proposals, attending council meetings, providing the community with regular updates, monitoring the platform systems, and enforcing operational rules. Just to cap from the last meeting, we discussed Telcoin network development progress. We discussed council member attendance. We discussed the NDA proposal, which was moved to snapshot. And we discussed TELIP Year 2 issuance. We also had a guest appearance from Bilal from the game company. And just this week, TGC announced their intention to launch their platform on Telcoin Network. It's very exciting news. And their interest to participate as a miner on the platform under the application developer and TAM. So, yeah, exciting week. With that, I think we will go ahead and just go to Steve for a quick Telcoin Network update.
All right. Yeah, thanks, Grant. So the Telcoin Network, we've wrapped up what we're going to be doing for syncing for Alpha Mainnet. It's basically a brute force, start at Genesis of where you're at and re-execute blocks. But, it won't really be a problem until we have tons of blocks. So we'll implement something more efficient after Alpha Mainnet. Also moving forward with replacing our current network layer with Light P2P. That is well underway, but not complete yet. And then also some general refactors, trying to clean up some of the gnarly corners of the code base, just to make it more maintainable for us, but more accessible to anyone on the outside that wants to participate as well. So that's that's kind of it from the last meeting.
Perfect. Yeah, just one last thought I thought I'd add is we've also have a few we've identified a few good beginner issues on the repo, and I also want to remind everybody that there's a public project board that's kind of tracking what the Telcoin network issues are, what's being worked on, what is left to do, etc. If you have any questions, always feel free to ask in the Telcoin network channel. Alrighty. So moving on to next top of the agenda is really addressing the lack of participation by 2 of our platform council members. And with that, it's been a discussion for the past month and the last 2 meetings. And we have several things that have several actions that have taken place behind the scenes. I want to give an opportunity for Adam and Simon to go ahead and speak, and if you would care to provide an update on any recent actions that have been taken. Adam, if you want to start. I see that you're unmuted, but I cannot hear you.
I think you had that problem last time, didn't you, Adam?
Yeah, that's Simon. Yeah.
I'll take over if he might have to switch to his phone again. I think he did that on the last meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll go crack on anyway.
Great.
Yeah, both me and Adam made contact directly with the compliance council to notify them of lack of participation from 2 platform council members. So yeah, we basically stated the reasons why. Obviously due to the lack of participation in meetings, and then sort of the lack of voting in the last important snapshot vote was pretty critical to that decision. And it's not just that. I mean, it was a pretty critical vote, and that's meant we've, as a community, I know a few council members have got a bit of backlash from some community members about that hindering progress. So yeah, that's certainly frustrating. But yeah, that's now gone to the snapshot vote yesterday, and I believe it's now received 3 out of 4 of the votes. I know Tim was one of the votes which he verbally gave. He said he didn't have a signing key available, which I'm not sure what that means, but he did give his verbal 4 votes. So yeah, we'll I think we'll let the council members continue what they need to do with that. Yeah, don't think there's anything else to add unless you got anything, Grant.
I could add something. I'd just say I think that this is exactly how the institution that we've developed is meant to work, and seeing and what I mean to say is that we have a set of rules that we've created that have things that basically enable. They basically permit certain actions, forbid things, and require certain things. And in this case, the requirement of council members to join these meetings, or to say why they cannot make it to any meeting that they miss. That's the rule. And so, but via this process, we have this self-regulating system, and this special purpose council, the compliance council, will step in and make sure that the system is operating according to its rules and that those rules are enforced. And in that way, it basically makes it so that we can reduce the decision-making costs in terms of the time required to get things done, and also hold ourselves to the standards that we have created. So this is, on one hand, it's it can be viewed as a frustrating thing to not have the council show up, and of course, I think we're all we would like to have had that NDA done via the last proposal that we put through, and we didn't get the quorum needed. But now we have a chance to enforce the rules, and then B, implement the process for it to basically, which includes basically so the vote, which Tim doesn't have his signing key because he doesn't have his wallet that's in a different location than where he currently is, and the vote was put like today without a tremendous amount of notice. So, but regardless, yeah, he's posted on the forum that he's approved. And so after this is approved, which it technically is now, because there's a quorum requirement of 3 voters and an approval rate of 2 for the compliance council. And so now that once that is approved, then the TAO's role, to reduce this decision-making costs, the time is to jump in and vote on that proposal, or revoke those NFTs. We're going to resubmit the proposal, which given the CCIP's timeline, that enables us to resubmit the NDA proposal on Monday, and then vote it through as it would have been done should those two members have voted. And then at the same time, next week, we basically create it's a special election called a liquid delegation ceremony, and we will post two separate liquid delegation proposals to the minor groups on the forum for them to submit their application to participate in the election and potentially be elected by their peers to be on this council. So that is basically a 2-week period for people to go ahead and submit their nomination application to the forum for this proposal. And I think it would be reasonable to extend that time period to longer than 2 weeks. But if because of it being abrupt and wanting to get enough people, but at the same time, I think that's probably a pretty good timeline to ensure that people have the opportunity to submit their nomination application. So either way, yeah, we're going to enforce this. It's how this system's supposed to work. We're now, using the rules that we've created to make sure this governance system operates at a high level. So yeah, very, obviously unfortunate, but I think, but I don't think either of the council members in any of these cases are, actively trying to shirk duties or anything like that. A lot of times it can come down to timing, and but it's good that we're holding ourselves to these standards and enforcing the rules, and that's my input.
Sorry, Parker. When did you say the applications for the liquid delegation go live? Is that next Monday as well?
Yeah. So basically, after this CCIP proposal is approved, final with the finality of the 72-hour window, then on Monday we'll submit liquid delegation proposals on the forum for people to nominate themselves for the next 2 weeks, and then the 2 weeks from that Monday we can then initiate the election. And it's feasible that it's not out of reason to say, well, maybe we do 3 weeks instead of 2 weeks to give people ample time, but 2 weeks is kind of what is the amount that was ascribed to it.
Okay, so can you guys hear me now?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So I just wanted to give a bit of insight to the process so people can understand what happened essentially behind the scenes going from last meeting. So we know there was the issue with the council members the two council members in question being active for quite some time. It's not just about missing a few meetings, essentially what it means to hold the council position and the responsibilities that come with it. So as Parker said, Telcoin operates on a set of rules that ensure every council member contributes meaningfully. And when that doesn't happen, it affects the entire council, which ultimately affects the progress we're working towards, which we saw with the NDA proposal being rejected. So just to give a bit of insight of what happened as well, after the meeting, we said we would create a template that to send across as an email to all council members. This has now been created for any issues to go to the Compliance Council. Essentially, from this perspective, we CC'd the TAO, the Compliance Council, the Platform Council, and the members in question. These were done singularly, so each member got their own email. To put it plainly, the members missed 6 consecutive meetings. We essentially offered them to give them, we put in the email to provide an explanation. And according to the Telcoin Association rules, council members are required to attend the meetings. If they're unable to attend, at least send in their updates and notes of what they've done or key proposals, so the community and the council have insight. So the second one is actively contribute to their area of responsibility. So we understand each sector in the council has different responsibilities. And then thirdly, engage with the community and the council in just a meaningful way. So failing to do these puts the role in question. And from the rules, we gave so on the forum, there are set rules for each compliance council, or each council, that they have to adhere to. If someone isn't participating, the compliance council then has the authority to revoke the governance NFT. And as Parker said, this gets passed on to an interim replacement and the TAL to vote until a new candidate steps in. It wasn't just a black and white email. We gave them a fair chance. So it's not just kind of cutting them loose. In there, we asked to understand a valid reason for the absence over the last however meeting. So in this instance, it was 6 meetings for both participants. Explain why they haven't engaged with either proposals, the council, or updates, and prove what they actually have contributed since joining the council. Again, it's not about assumptions, it's about facts. If they're working behind the scenes in ways that we aren't aware of, it's their chance to show. If there's no reason or record of contributions, it says a lot. So from that, we even said in the email, if they do want to contribute in their role, they need to outline a clear plan of how they're going to step up in the engagement. And that also means how they'll stay involved going forward, what expertise they actually bring to the council, and what improvements or contributions do they plan to make. Again, it was specific and actionable questions for them to answer. So it couldn't be any vague promises or, oh no, I'll do better. But it had to be a real plan. If they wanted to stay on, they essentially need to show that they're serious about being part of the council. So, as the guy said, what is it that happens next? It is naturally with the compliance council now. It's been put to vote, and naturally, if approved, then the council's their NFTs will be revoked, and then vice versa. So I just want to reiterate, this isn't about punishing people. It's about making sure that the council's strong, active and functional. So every council member here plays a role in shaping the direction of Telcoin Association. If someone or some people aren't participating, it generally holds back the progress for everyone, which again, we saw in the last NDA proposal. The reality is, if you're in a council position, you have responsibility to show up and contribute. If you can't do that, then we genuinely need to find someone who can and is willing to. That pretty much gives a summary of that. If anyone does have any questions as well, please ping a message into the chat, because naturally I wanted to give as much insight to the process as possible. And one thing to Parker as well, if we get 100% like full quorum straight away before the time frame of the vote is ended, is it possible to then account for it to say, oh, okay, this is officially passed and we can then act on it? Or do we need to wait until the end? Because if we have the 100% and we have the 8 out of 8 or however many people are needed, surely that means it would naturally automatically pass. But I just wanted to get clarity on that to see if we are able to fast track any of the processes.
No, and the reason is because you can change your vote. during that time period, and it's meant to give you that ample time. Now, it is also, I see your point, and I think moving fast is critical. But yeah, and really in advance of any snapshot proposals, everyone should be on board, right? We should have, like, in these meetings, the consensus and have it be approved via, that verbal communication here. And yeah, in this case, we need to move forward with getting that NDA proposal done. And so I think everything is going according to plan. Did I catch your question properly?
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fine. And just to follow on from that question, is the set time frame there for a specific reason, or are we able to put in a proposal, as other council members have mentioned previously, within this council, within other councils, that we can shorten that time frame if it is agreed overall in a quorum from everybody?
And so you're talking about
for
changing the
21.
rules. So you're talking about changing the decision-making rules for councils to reduce the duration of time of proposals, right?
Yeah. So would that be possible, or is the time frame for a set reason, or?
Yeah, it's there for a set reason, so that you have basically enough time for people to vote, 5 business days on the votes, and then with the compliance councils, they have all of that time plus 72 hours to veto a potential proposal that comes through. And yeah, I mean, so in the process for because we want to, voting is super critical, and it's our duty to do that, and we don't want to make that more difficult than necessary. If we put 1-day votes in, I just strongly doubt that we'll be able to get the quorum numbers, approval rates we need, because everyone's on different time zones around the world, and you name it. 5 days is ample time when especially our new norm. It's not a rule, but I think our new norm, at least from the Platform Council, Treasury Council meeting last time, was that we've decided to use Mondays as the day that we make proposals, so we have a full business week to do that. And then if there are proposals that are, not on a Monday but need to be pushed through more rapidly, then you would sort of basically extend it 2 days because of the weekend, which is what has happened. But that's more of a norm. And to change the basic rules, the duration of governance requires the minor assembly, which is all 4 minor groups, to basically submit a TGIP1 proposal, or I thought not TGIP1, just a TGIP proposal. And the reason for that, so basically you have these 3 levels of rules. You have the constitutional levels of rules, and these are basically the processes by which you can change the rules of governance. So the collective choice rules. So that is, so basically, how do you change, let's say the 4 minor groups electing, and how the processes for how they elect individuals. How do you change the rules for how minor councils make decisions? That constitutional layer is the layer which is going to have the least amount of change relative to, let's say, the least amount of activities, right? Changing the rules of governance that happens a lot less frequently than changing harvesting rules on TELx, right? And then you have this. So then you have these collective choice rules in the middle, which determine, they set the process for how you determine the day-to-day rules, like communication rules for the recurring meetings, harvesting rules, issuance, etc. So there's basically the constitutional rules at the highest level, and those constitutional rules are really what protects each of the minor groups who, within this governance system, it's designed to have equal power and control. across the value chain. And so it's meant to be such that each of the miner groups needs to submit a proposal that, in this case, let's say the proposal was, we want to reduce the amount of time from 5 days to 1, just as an example. I know that wouldn't be the actual proposal, for the duration of a TIP. Then each of the miner groups would need to submit that same proposal to their snapshot. Doesn't matter how long it takes in between each of them to vote, but they all do need to approve it with an 80% approval rate and a 20% quorum. And the reason for that is because this constitutional level is what protects the rights of each of the minor groups so that they're not voted out of the island. Because the constitutional level, so you need to have this unanimous consent from stakers, developers, validators, and liquidity miners, such that it's so that, let's say, for instance, liquidity miners, developers, and stakers don't vote the validators out of existence. And so these really empower. So yeah, if you wanted to change that, I know this is a long answer, but it is really important to understand like the structure of governance as being 3 levels of rules: constitutional, collective choice, with the councils, and then the day-to-day rules like communication. And so yeah, the minor assembly would need to do that proposal, and then everybody would need to approve it, 80% approval rate and 20% quorum from each group. So is that useful?
Yeah, no, honestly, I really do appreciate that, because it gives not only myself but the community as well insight to the time frame and the reasonings. Yeah, that's absolutely fine. And I really do appreciate it.
There is one exception to constitutional level authority. I guess there's 2. One of them is basically the Platform Council can determine who. So right now, the first election is, basically you submit the forum proposals. The TAO submit the forum proposals for each of the positions on each of the councils, and then people, submit their applications, and then there's a big vote. And so it's a manual process. And the Platform Council via TIP can change who and how the actual election process is done. If they wanted to, let's say, automate it in some way that's different than but in terms of the actual rules for, there needs to be a plurality so that most votes wins, 7 days, and a 20% quorum. Those can't be changed by the Platform Council, but you can change, like if you wanted to not have the TAO be the person that proposes all of the things at that time, which to me just seems like the pretty easy process. It's also something that could be optimized pretty sufficiently, but it would require some, pretty well-written proposal and designed, thought out to do it. There's certainly not a lack of different DAO implementations across crypto that could be suitable to it, but this one does work. Right?
Yeah, no, it's perfect. Thank you for that.
Anytime.
Marcus, did you have anything to add? I saw you're unmuted. I just wasn't sure if mic issues or we're good to go.
Oh, I apologize. I did not realize I was unmuted. No, I don't. I mean, I can quickly provide an update. I'm more or less still working through bridging updates and focusing on, getting the end-to-end flow of a cross-chain transaction from Sepolia testnet to Telcoin testnet. And yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah. I was sorry. I was just curious if you had questions about the other process as well. So, okay. Well, very good. I think that So again, quick recap. It's with the Compliance Council vote. They need at least 2 votes in favor, 3/4 quorum. At that point, TAL would revoke an FT involved and substitute vote on behalf of those seats. At the same time, the TAL also will coordinate a liquid delegation ceremony and submit to the forum post for potential candidates to nominate themselves, just like the original election cycle went on. And then those potential candidates have 2 weeks to submit their nomination applications in the new forum post. And then each minor group that has vacancies will vote on those candidates via snapshot vote. With that, I'd like to move forward with our next topic on the agenda, our TELIP update for year 2 TELissuance. Right. Parker, would you care to take the floor?
Of course. So let's see here. Well, there's a question related to NDAs in the chat, basically saying that the NDA proposal should not pass. And so I think Tim is probably the best person to answer that question. So Tim, do you want to come up and just kind of speak to the NDA question briefly?
I'll read it out loud. I think this NDA should not pass. How can we track that the council members do not take advantage of the information? It is crypto. It's too easy to set up a wallet on the side and take advantage of it.
So the question goes, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So the question goes to whether we would disclose information to council members who've signed a non-disclosure agreement. That's correct, right? Am I correct about that?
Yes.
Okay, good. So the question raises, a legitimate concern. That is a concern that any organization has with any individual within the organization receiving confidential information. All of you are probably associated with various companies, and you get inside information. You as employees, or even if a contractor, you have a contract with the entity, you have legal obligations to not disclose it. And if you do then disclose it, then there are consequences, legal consequences. And if it's not serious enough, you get sued for the end. So that's not really a great remedy, though. So organizations usually take practical precautions as well as having that legal remedy available. And so one of the best practical precautions is to limit the number and type of people that get sensitive information. Now, the Telcoin Association is in a bit of a different position than your average company out there with confidential information, in that it's a collaborative organization. It relies on decentralized members coming together and operating as just an associated group of people. So it's really hard to have the transparency necessary to allow that structure to work and work efficiently, and yet maintain somewhat centralized control over its confidential information. So I think the proposal tries to strike a balance in that regard. In that saying for compliance members, we think you're going to need to know certain information, and but in order to even have the opportunity to get that information, you have to take on a legal obligation not to disclose it and not to use it for any purpose other than that's in the best interest of the Telcoin Association. And if you breach that, then you can be personally liable for doing so. So I think having NDAs in place is a significant step that the organization could take to protect its information, to fulfill its obligations to other organizations it has NDAs with, but also allow the transparency that's necessary for the organization to operate. Now, if we have some errant council members that kind of go rogue and start disclosing or using confidential information for their own purposes, well, then that's an item for the Compliance Council to discuss and the association to discuss through its other governance structures to see, what action it needs to take. Certainly, probably immediately cutting them off from any access to information going further. Perhaps it is referring it, giving instructions to the TAO to send out legal letters of caution. Maybe it is suing the person. There's different avenues to take, and it depends. It's facts and circumstance and situation. But I think without having the NDAs in place with the council members, you basically hamstring the association from being able to operate. The only other way I can see that the association could operate without having individual members signing NDAs and having access to that information is for the council members just basically to hand everything over to its subsidiary TAO and just say, TAO, you do it. But then that really abdicates the association itself and its council's responsibility under the Constitution to be the brains and governance of the overall association. So I think that alternative isn't even practical, questionable whether it's legal. So I guess in summation, I'd just say that the NDA process is appropriate. It's very standardized for organizations to operate. I think it's absolutely critical for the association to be able to operate in any sort of transparent situation. And if there are outliers, then we can address those outliers when and if they occur.
Thank you, Tim. That was well articulated. Did anyone have any questions arising from Tim's explanation? Joe Bellini says Tim's always got the right words with the Telcoin blue heart. So looks like you crush it, Tim. So, okay, it sounds like we're squared away on understanding why the NDAs are important and the recourse that we have as an organization. And I think it's also important to note that there are certain levels of confidentiality relative in terms of like need to know, and those may be divided across different documents based off of and persons who are in need to know scenarios and actually implementing these things that could be sensitive material that could be considered insider. So yeah, anyways, great stuff. And on my end, Grant, you wanted me to just kind of touch on a couple of the questions from the TELIP year 2.
Yeah, that'd be great. And I think, the overall goal kind of being like, kind of steering us towards snapshot where we're at and like, how we're feeling with that. And there were a couple questions from the community, and I think it'd be a good time to just maybe sync on those collectively.
Yeah, sounds good. So I think the first thing I'll say is that I think as Grant said, great questions overall. Exciting to get this to this point for us to make everything happen this year. And so yeah, it's a big proposal, and some great questions, and I'll provide some color. So basically, one of the questions was, how do you manage budgets denominated in TEL with market volatility? Well, basically, within the proposal, the idea is that the TEL for each of the that will be distributed in whole to each of the different safes. So to the 200 million TEL minus the first 2 months of the year, to the TELxSAFE, the $200 million to the Telcoin network, and basically a special allocation quantity of $105 million to TAN because that hasn't been started, and then a allocation to the TAO to develop Telcoin network and fulfill its various duties. And so each of these, so it's, how do you manage budgets denominated in TELIP market volatility? So it's important to note that, each of these councils, whether it's the global councils or the local ones, they share two fundamental duties within governance, and it's both provisioning and incentives allocation. So with provisioning, each council goes, they plan and allocate TEL to finance infrastructure development and other collective goods and services. So for instance, the global councils could finance platform-wide, infrastructure development on the governance infrastructure. The TELx council, could create specific staking contracts or data analytics platforms, and they use the TEL that they're distributed for this purpose, provisioning, so planning and financing the development of platform infrastructure and other collective goods, and then incentives allocation, which is basically allocating incentives for miners to harvest from the platform based on rules that are set by the council. So each of these councils, according to the proposal, receives a distribution of TEL in the allocation that is set out. And within that, basically, they have these two duties, right? They have provisioning, so planning and financing infrastructure, and then they have incentives allocation. And by doing it at the beginning of the year, it basically enables the councils to allocate, given current prices, over time and between these two areas based on what their needs are for planning and financing things. So the TAN Council, if it has specific infrastructure that it wants to create, then it would, from its allocation within the TAN Council SAFE, they would make a proposal, specify how much TEL for what, approve it, and then that TEL would be transferred. And so if one's considering this, volatility and budgeting situation with this, asset TEL that is inherently volatile, it really only the provisioning part of this, so the planning and financing infrastructure development, could be under consideration from a pricing perspective. TEL incentives are really denominated in TEL in the same way that BTC or ETH incentives are denominated in those currencies. Well, very specific real world developments that need to happen in conjunction with parties that contract with the association to build things, are also financed. So that money there is financed via, USD costs, stable currency, right? Could be a pound. It just depends on what country it is. But regardless, there's this allocation that goes to each of these safes. And then those councils have the duty and right to determine, if they're going to, for instance, sell some TEL to USD to finance future costs of development, and then keep the rest in TEL for allocating towards incentives. These things are really up to each of the councils and the issuance reserves that they oversee and have authority to do so. And so, but it's important to note some additional context. This governance system is modular, polycentric. There's basically, these global governance bodies, Platform and Treasury Council, that govern the platform as one indivisible system and the sort of global policies. You can think about it like a national government, and then you have your local governance orgs that are focused on specific subsystems of the platform. And so, but let's say that, a local council needs additional funding beyond its reserves due to, a proposal that was passed and or just overall they don't have the funding to make it work. There's the opportunity within this modular structure to do what's called forum shopping, and what that means is basically, let's say the TELx Council approves a proposal and they need to get funding that they don't have. Well, they have the right as council members, according to the Constitution, to actually make both forum and snapshot proposals to the other councils to obtain funding. So the cooperation between councils is really important for the collective good of the association and the sustainability of the platform, the efficiency and the use of our resources, and overall, taking each other into account, so that we can have the best system possible. So if, let's say, the TELx Council ran out of funds, well, they could go and submit a TELIP to the Platform and Treasury Councils to obtain more resources. They could go to the TAN Council and do a TAN IP. And of course, they could use their existing allocation, but ultimately this flexibility allows councils to cooperate with each other while maintaining their autonomy over their productive zone or domain. And you could think of it kind of like states being able to request federal funding while still managing their own budgets independently. And so the next question was basically, does TELissuance roll over? And yes, I don't think that there would be any TELissuance that would. So it depends basically. So if let's say it's the TAN Council save, that's that TEL and it hasn't been spent or distributed or allocated yet, the TAN Council has authority to determine what it does with those funds. And there's then, in the next year, another proposal by the Platform and Treasury Council to allocate to them. In the case of the TAO, which is an important one because it's basically financing the development of different components, which based on our estimates, we have covered the costs for this full year. In that case, any unspent TEL, remains in the safe, can be used for future provisioning and incentives allocation, and but at the same time, we have this basically the transparency of we don't need this. Let's allocate it towards something else that we can either determine as a council here, or just basically roll that over for next year's provisioning budget for the TAO to develop. It ultimately comes down to how much is used and to finance what we expect the costs are going to be. But it does roll over in that sense. Though the TAO's funds are meant to be used to finance certain things, and it's within the realm of possibility that there will be significant excess of funds or lack of needed funds at the end of the year. And then, so the funding for exchange listings, this is where this and the funding for the current TELx save, this is interesting to me. Basically, Squirtel asked how if this is going to fund the exchange listings proposal from this budget, this distribution, and initially it did not. And what I would propose in light of that, given that we're only at phase 1 of TAN issuance, and that'll commence with SACRs, and there's significant TEL available in that save. What I would suggest, based off of the estimated cost that we think for the current TELx proposals and for the exchange listing to proposals, to instead of I think we're allocating to get to 300 million TEL in the TAN Council safe. We are allocating like 105.55 something million TEL to that safe from this issuance. And what I would proposed a change is to say, let's take 10 million of that to finance, to be used as a provisioning budget for the TELx Council to use to finance its activities that are ongoing, and then 40 million of that to go towards a sort of platform council provisioning budget that first and foremost is used as for this exchange budget. So Squirtel, that question was directly from you, so I didn't know what your thoughts were on it, but I think it makes sense given that there would be still 250 million till the TAN Council save a 3.2 million per week TEL allocation to stakers, and then really just some initial issuance. I mean, we haven't finalized the developer issuance yet, so I mean, I think for the year that actually makes a lot of sense.
So yeah, from that perspective, it does make sense. Naturally, because we're working with the token as well, naturally any exchanges or anything like that, as the value does increase of the Telcoin token, so will the rate of the amount of Telcoin that would be provided to any exchanges or any of the negotiations would then also change in more favorable terms. So yeah, completely understand that.
Sounds good. So if anyone has any objections to the change in the TAN allocation, please raise your hand or jump up so we can address them. Any hands up?
See some typing in the chat, but yeah, and so like the other thing that you had mentioned, Parker, was allocation towards the TELx initiatives. Could you elaborate on that briefly?
Sure. So right now, there are two TELxIP proposals, maybe three really. There's an analytics proposal. There is a proposal related to the single asset liquidity provision. I don't know if that the extent that that's been passed or anything yet. But then there's also a proposal to add staking contracts to the Uniswap TELETH like B4 pool, and so all those tasks, of course, are going to require money. And given that there is this sort of excess amount of allocation of funds within the TAN safe relative to the others, and basically less need for those resources in the immediate term relative to the TELx needs to finance those front end design features, the new staking contract, the analytics. I think it makes a lot of sense, given we're doing this at the same time, to just say, here's the 10 million TEL to finance that, which I think, based off of the consultants that you've spoken with, I mean, I know Telcoin Holdings doesn't have the resources on the front end side to do a couple of the front end ones. And so, based off of who we've talked to, that seems to be the right budget, at least at current prices, to get those proposals done. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, and that's something I plan to follow up with the TELx Council with soon. Just kind of in the capacity of the TAO, trying to find these developer resources and stuff, and just sort of the learning experience that's gone on. So kind of talking along those lines, because I think the TELx Council has come up with some great ideas to really improve that layer of the platform. Something else that was kind of discussed and that I'd like to address now in case any other councils or local councils are having similar questions. But when it comes to like respective selling TEL or USD, swapping, managing that budget, really then the year two TEL issuance, when this goes to snapshot and eventually it will need to be approved at some point. However, however that balance shakes out, again, using TELx Council as an example here, that allocation would be sent to the TELx safe. And the TELx safe would be managed and multi-sig through a multi-sig safe. So that TELx council members holding those NFTs would have the right, the exclusive access to create transactions and to manage those funds. And now, when it comes to selling TEL or swapping into USD, my understanding is that there's no additional proposal that's needed to be put forward for that. That's really up to the councils to manage that funding as they see fit, and that it's really just more or less like coming together for that type of signature. Is that a correct understanding?
Can you say that one more time?
Yeah, so the budgets and the allocation is all denominated in TEL.
Oh,
And
yes.
something that
Yeah.
so the
Yeah, I
councils,
agree.
so if they decide like, hey, maybe they decide not like we have some upcoming expenditures, or maybe another common financial strategy is to kind of maybe sell monthly. There's a lot of different ways, but that initial swapping from TEL to some other asset is really up to the councils. There is
Yeah.
no guidelines in the book. It's just sort of this is your budget for the year.
Yeah, exactly. So, there are these basically each of these governance orgs, TAN Council, TELx Council, they have the autonomy to make their own rules to allocate their TEL however they want, and they do that in light of these duties. And so they, in whatever is necessary in terms of, we need to exchange TEL for USDC in the future, EUSD, big shout out. And we need to, they might say we need to pay for whatever at this time, so let's budget. It's really, with that autonomy becomes this responsibility of ensuring that you have enough funds, but understanding that we do have a market environment that is annualized something like 80% volatility, and that you have a backstop with the platform council and the other council, whether you're TAN, that would be TELx, and vice versa, to go and say, hey, you guys have these funds. We have this proposal that we've approved, but we don't really have the funding for it. What do you think about helping us out? And so through that cooperation, so basically by making this modular structure, we can have different governance units focus on critical areas of the platform with their full attention. And then, but it's also critical that for it to be what would be considered a functional polycentric system, not to get too doctrinal here, there needs to be cooperation between these governance orgs. And so that's why all the council members can go and say, hey, TAN Council, we've got this proposal. We need to get some money. Can you help us out? And then it's the TAN Council's right to say no. But yeah, ultimately, selling TEL for USD to be used generally to finance different, infrastructure development and different collective goods creation and maintenance, and not really for TEL incentives. That's my personal view on it. But once again, there's autonomy there, and there's certainly no rules that say that, but that say you can't move a percentage of your incentives allocation to hedge against market volatility. I just think that that's pretty kind of silly. It's more like if you need a USD value in the future that you have now to pay a USD expense or another currency, then proper budgeting and sales, treasury management, that's the responsibility of the council.
Yes, and to that point too, that they will be the ones with that access to the council. And if a local council proposes a budget expense that they choose to provision or allocate TEL in their proposal, that is their complete domain. There's no secondary follow up with like a TELx proposal to allocate. Funding for certain or provision for projects. It does not need to have any additional oversight or vote or proposal, assuming that it comes from that council's safe. So I did want to clarify that, just because that was something that I was a little that I was trying to find clarity on as well. So great. With that, I also had one other idea that I wanted to float by for discussion, and that'd be, if a council decided to open a secondary safe, maybe where they could allocate a percentage of their budget, kind of for development marketing purposes. Is that something that the councils are? Is there? I would imagine that it's a kind of a technical thing, so that might be like might need help from the TAO or something like that to to set that up. But I was unclear as far as the NFT structures. Amir, maybe this would be a better question for
Well,
you, but
So the question is related to creating new safes that would be effectively sort of discretionary allocations to for provisioning budget that they need to then allocate, and it's separate from, let's say, the TELx council safe. It would be a separate one. Or the perfect example of this would be for the platform council and the exchange listings budget, creating a safe for the for that specific program, right?
exactly.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly what our role is to do, and then work with the TAO. In this case, we would just contract with Amir through Telcoin Holdings to create those safes, and put it into the. If it had, obviously, it would have to be proposed with full specifications and everything, and then approved before doing that. And I think that's what we should do, just so we're clear, as it relates not to the TELx one. I think that we'll just go to that safe, and I don't know. Maybe we speak with them about it. But the platform council one, there isn't actually a platform council safe because the protection of the largest stock of TEL, the TEL treasury, it's been structured and governed such that there's two governance orgs required to make any moves with those funds. And, so we need to create a platform council safe for this specific reason, and go from there.
Excellent.
So just to jump in quickly, we've had a couple of questions. One from Boo, basically saying, once the exchange listing's been established and TEL's listed, are there any further costs afterwards, e.g. annual costs, etc.? Naturally, we introduced Make It, which are the market makers, a few meetings ago. Where would the costing from their side come in? Would it come out of an exchange, like the exchange ones from the platform, or how is that covered? First of all, just I need to ensure, are any additional costs having to come out of that budget, or is it specifically for exchanges and everything like that? And then secondly, we've had Andrew saying, which makes a fair point, can we get a specific safe for development and marketing? Because naturally with the Telcoin Association, the marketing aspect we know can be a costly thing. We could be, I know Telcoin themselves have different agencies that they'll work with, but the association currently does not. So naturally we can definitely approach different agencies, and if there are any in talks with, great.
Yeah.
But where would that costing come from? Where would that?
So we need to make a proposal for that, and we need to meet them, figure out what their costs are. It would come from so I mean, that basically you had two questions: the costing for make it and the costing for a development and marketing budget. And so I mean, the first one, make it, we already have transferred them any TEL that they would be using for market making, and that is an asset of the association, that can, within 48 hours notice, be clawed back by us, in line with their agreement. And so there is, that TEL is an asset as well. And then the 40 million in this case, I was saying that would be basically towards exchanges. It could be towards marketing development, but the development side, we're developing a blockchain and all of these other things, and those can either be via the TAO in the case of like Telcoin Network, or ad hoc proposals from each of the councils. So each of the councils can create marketing development budgets as well within their existing allocation. And so yeah, I think basically that's up to the councils and how they want to do that, ranging all the way from the platform to the TELx, the TAN Council. Compliance Council could certainly have reasons to need funds as well. And so you just use which process is necessary to allocate which funds from where. So TELIP is TELtreasury, TELxIP is TELxSafe, and then TANIP is the TAN Council Safe. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm in favor of all of that. I think we're basically making that now, for the Platform Council. And then, sounds like TELx Council was thinking about doing that with 10% of their allocation. I think we're going to put this 10 million TEL into that budget as well, for them. But then lastly, the one really critical thing about the platform's ownership model is that it's designed to be basically a self-marketing system, a system that distributes on its own via incentives. And that's really the role of stakers within the platform, is to drive adoption by users, and further by the TAN Council, to develop incentives, programs, and systems to properly market the system to everyday users. So there's that part in which the incentives themselves are a sort of marketing stipend, and then the last part is working with agencies. I have two different agencies that I've spoken to over the years. One which we work with, the Telcoin Holdings, that I like a lot, and then I've kind of approached and said, hey, you should come on here, because the way that we operate as an association is really through agency. I mean, we contract with others to perform duties, and pay them, and we make the decisions to do that via the TAO. And so what I'd like to do, before we were to get into saying, let's allocate this to marketing over this time, I think we should maybe get some of those folks in here to a meeting, and have them pitch us on how they can achieve our marketing goals.
Okay, perfect. And just another point, if there's any funds left over, I assume they'll be carried over to the next year?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, once the funds are distributed from the TELtreasury, they're under the control of the organization that that controls the safe that the TEL is transferred to, those TEL reserves. And so that autonomy is built into the system for a number of reasons. It'd be very difficult to regulate three different, overlapping blockchain systems from one council, and probably wouldn't be that great at it. And so, yeah, that's sort of why we set it up this way.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Likewise. did you, as far as the so the NDA proposal, just looking at the messages here. So yeah, the proposal for the NDA, we're going to resubmit that to the forum.
Yes.
Cool. Yeah, and you're just giving an overview of what that proposal is. Are there any changes that you're making to this new proposal, Squirtella, or are you just saying here's what it is?
No, so this is so with the NDA proposal, that's slightly different. So that's for the council NDA. It was following on from the NDA talk because we're going through all the different risks. Essentially, I'll be putting forward a additional post that pretty much covers the entire process and the reasonings behind it. So the NDA and confidentiality risks, how we're mitigating certain aspects, the liability and regulatory compliance risks, and again, the mitigation aspects, insider trading. So each one of these has mitigations. Essentially, risks of discussing anything that is NDA and the effects that it can have from both council and overall, because any sort of breach can be deemed, any breach will naturally have knock-on effects that could affect any deals or any talks or anything. So essentially, to give the understanding and the process of and the reasonings to why, and then how we go about, so the different stages of this, just so the community as a whole get a better understanding of the entire process and the rationale behind it all.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Just a quick question in the chat here. What happens if council members don't sign the NDA? If the council members don't sign the NDA, then they don't get access to the information. It's hard to imagine. And yeah, I don't know actually. Like in that situation, I don't think they'd really be able to fulfill their obligations very well either. So that's kind of a it's hard to imagine that happening. But yeah, obviously, if they're not going to sign an NDA, then that puts the whole project at jeopardy, and that's and just going to be excluded from the conversation.
So just to jump into that, so any council members that don't sign the NDA, they therefore won't have the information to be able to accurately assess and vote on any proposals or anything like that. So it would actually put the kind of the council or whatever proposal is being pushed forward into jeopardy, because there wouldn't be a full understanding. So it is one of those, if you are going to make a decision, you kind of have to understand the ins and outs if there is anything NDA related, just to be able to give the information so you can make a rational decision on whether you'd approve or reject each proposal.
Yeah, in that light, I suppose then we should. I mean, we have an opportunity for the proposal to sort of redo the proposal a bit, and if this language isn't in there, we might as well just add in council members are required to sign this NDA in order. Yeah, I think that's.
I agree. Well, great. Kind of on that note, I know that the NDA was kind of like a bit of a roadblocker for us, but Adam, I did want to provide any time if you care to speak to progress along the exchange listings front. I know that there's like a kind of a follow-up proposal in the works, and just any thoughts you have to share, give the floor to you.
Perfect. So, as Grant was saying, there is essentially a follow-up proposal after we've had not only the Compliance Council kind of decisions happen and the NDA proposal going forward. The reason being is, like I said, I want to give the rationale behind each reasoning and why we are doing this. Naturally, a lot of my role I cannot talk about, but for the council, so one of the biggest hindrances was key proposals such as the NDA one. So I can then, if there are any talks happening or any aspects, I'm then able to relay that information to the council, which then gives everyone within that council the information needed to accurately assess and vote once a proposal does go ahead and snapshot goes ahead. Naturally, anything that does go to the council would be covered under the NDA. So what can be brought to the forums in general would end up being a very highly redacted aspect, because again, even though the Telcoin Association is a Swiss variant, any sort of breach under NDA could put anything at jeopardy. And in all honesty, if I was to bring something to the table and then spoke about it, I don't want to be the reason for if there is anything that doesn't go ahead, because one, the community, as lovely as you guys are, you can be brutal at times, and I don't want to be on that side. And two, I've been here since the start of Telcoin, since its inception. So seeing this grow and achieving what it is achieving, why I don't want to put anything at jeopardy for just a quick show in the limelight, because what would that achieve? It wouldn't achieve anything in the overall goals. So I do understand there is some frustration, but please realize that I am exactly the same as every single one of you. I've been here since the beginning, following the journey and basically seeing it from its inception throughout to the beast it is becoming, and will become. So whenever I am able to say things, I cannot wait to. I'd be more than happy to. But you have to realize many aspects, whoever we're talking to, a lot of the time it will end up coming from any companies or anything like that first, due to them having to say, or there'd be a dual dual announcement or anything of the sort. So even though I am limited, what I'm basically saying, because I'm waffling a little bit, anything that I can say, I will. But due to the NDA aspect, there are many things I cannot. So trust me when I say I want the best for not only Telcoin, not only the community. We are all in this together, and I have been there since the beginning and want to see it throughout the journey. So once the NDA passes, I will be able to speak to council members, but until then, please look out, I guess, for any sort of highly redacted aspect that I can bring to the forum. I will. But yeah, my number one priority is to ensure that whatever is negotiated does go forward, or anything to be negotiated, or any talks or anything in the future, we are able to see it through.
Absolutely. And I have no doubt how hard you're working, Adam. I really appreciate it. So we're going to get this NDA proposal back up and approved very soon. So that's going to be a huge unlock. I know it's been a very complicated, it's a huge complication in just moving forward with all this. So good things coming. Great. Well, at this time on the agenda, I think that we have covered everything that we had planned to talk about. But as always, love to hear from the community and give some time for open questions so we could answer. Is there anyone in the audience with questions based on anything we've talked about or upcoming? You feel free to chat, post in the chat, raise your hand, etc. I'm going to give some time here.
Not an audience member, Grant, but I was going to ask about this. Joe in the chat has said about it. Obviously, the game company yesterday announced a partnership to use Telcoin network. Obviously, we had a representative from the game company a few weeks ago in here, which is cool. It's cool to see what's happening with that. Any more information that you can provide about that? I know it was also seen that some sort of investment was made towards the game company. I'm not sure if that's something you can talk about or if that's sort of not really in scope because it's a Telcoin's holding sort of thing.
That aspect isn't in scope, but the partnership, they basically are building out an on-chain ecosystem for gaming and a consumer application that will really sort of unlock gaming for mobile users around the world. And so, the mobile users who are in the developing world that don't have hardware to play your Call of Duties of the world, what they've done is they've created this cloud-based gaming platform that basically enables you to access games from your phone. And so, yeah, couldn't be more in line with us bringing real-world economic use cases to the Telcoin platform. And they will be, interestingly, doing a sort of reciprocal GSMA membership where they join the GSMA so they can build on Telcoin. But they're, Bilal, as an example, of 20 years of working in telecom for some of the largest telecoms in the world. And so it already made a ton of sense for them. And, that's kind of how they connected with us, is through our long-term telecom connections and, them wanting to build on a blockchain that is going to be able to scale to everybody. There just couldn't really be a better distribution model from their perspective for it. And then, so leveraging, this to get to all the mobile users and also to, use a blockchain that is institutionally sort of led, aligned, has a real legal structure for it, and has companies built on top of it that provide blockchain banking and digital cash that can enable micropayments, a hundredth of a penny, and crazy things that you just could never do in traditional finance and commerce. That blockchains enable. They're really uniquely positioned to bring that use case here. And so, yeah, it's a very exciting deal. I think they're going to continue to. I think they're doing a token generation event at some point, and overall, just working towards aligning with us because our visions and missions are really similar, and our infrastructure is kind of perfect for their use case.
Yeah, they store a lot of data on the chain, and so having fast finality that can handle large transactions and without having to wait minutes is really applicable to their platform as well. So Telcoin network, we've got a lot of alignment and with their as companies. So it's with their product and our network infrastructure. So yeah, it's very exciting.
Just to add one thing, is just a question. With naturally being the gaming company, gaming have certain tokens, everything like that. Would we see anything like that if they're in the digital form within the app, within the Telcoin app? Would there be different sections, or would that specifically be within? Yeah, so for the gaming side, or Telcoin be utilized throughout? How do we see this working?
Yeah, so I mean, they'll leverage Telcoin network, blockchain as their underlying infrastructure for payments and commerce, generally finance, to service their use case money. And so that's a key area for, they're going to use this system that we govern and use ourselves. And then also, so they're launching on there, but they're also going to apply after they can get into, basically they're in Dubai, so the TAN Council meetings are at 4 p.m. Central U.S. time, which is a very awkward, difficult time. It's the fact that we got Bilal on our last Platform Council meet. It was 2:30 a.m. there. I mean, what a guy. And so we want to get them into a TAN Council meet so that they can talk to the TAN Council and introduce themselves. And but yeah, that app that they're going to, we're an application developer. We have the Telcoin wallet. And we participate as an application developer in governance. And when it's unlocked, we'll participate in competing to harvest issuance based off of our app's usage of their service. And so they'll be a separate app with gaming, through their system, and they'll just also be leveraging our infrastructure, voting and governance if approved, and basically paying Telcoin network gas fees and Tel to drive the usage of the system, revenue to mobile operators, and sustainability of the token through its burn and regeneration mechanism. So yeah, overall they're coming in as an application developer, just like Telcoin Holdings is, in a separate app. And we want to get all of these types of use cases that are not like your whatever all my friends keep losing all their money on in the meme coin universe. That's just totally foreign to me. We're just really focused on like, oh, you guys have a really great application for this stuff. And I think people are starting to reach out and say, yeah, this is this sort of thing that we've been looking for to deploy on relative to the thousands of other networks. And so, yeah, that was an inbound. There's another one that's inbound that's, it's in a similar phase. And, I'm very excited for, GSMA, MWC at the beginning of March. So we can kind of showcase the things that are going on Telcoin network and within the ecosystem that should appeal to mobile operators. So yeah, it's a really exciting time overall.
And then just one follow-up question then. If a games company was looking to implement, for example, to utilize the Telcoin token within their gaming as to purchase, whether it's, I don't know, cosmetics or whatever the scenario, is there anything particularly that you would be incentivized to then work with them further, or would it be case-by-case basis naturally? So is there an incentivization to utilize the Telcoin token if companies were coming to you?
So the same structure. So for Telcoin Holdings as an application developer and any other application developer, there's very specific rules about what functionalities need to be offered in order for them to participate on the platform and harvest issuance and in governance as an application developer. That includes they need to stake Tel. They need to offer Tel staking functionality within the app, including the referral fee function. And in order to earn Tel issuance, that's based off of the fees paid to exchange on TELx and the gas fees that their application pays on Telcoin network, and the referral fees paid in Tel to their customers. So it basically, the whole system is designed such that in order to become this sort of, application developer and owner of the system, one of the miners, Tel is integral to that, both in terms of paying gas costs, using it as a production input, as a staker to earn Tel, and to earn Tel issuance, and beyond. I mean, everything that our requirements for them to participate and earn issuance in both, will certainly be part of it. And then the other part is just generally that they'll be leveraging the Telcoin network blockchain, which we all know, TELx will be over there in no time once that goes live, I'm sure, if I know the TELx Council well. And so that, they'll be leveraging that for trades, fluid movement between that, and then ultimately, the whole digital cash stablecoins that Telcoin Holdings is bringing to market through Telcoin Bank. That really empowers them to enable, global access from, bank to self-custody balance for real world stablecoins. And so that's, they're, very much so. TEL is very much so both a requirement and a utility and a reward and a voting power for them. So the liquidity between GMRT and TEL, will enable trades between those tokens and any other tokens that are on TELx or the Telcoin network and any other use cases in general. They all can connect to each other just naturally, living on blockchains. You could combine the protocols without asking for permission into really cool use cases. And so, it's completely built on the network and part of the ecosystem.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
And as an aside, it's, there's no sort of, you don't have TEL staking implemented, you don't have TEL staked, you're in trouble. It's just, no, you don't get to vote and you don't get to earn TEL issuance until you do these things. So anyone can build on Telcoin network, but to participate as an application developer, earn issuance, and vote is requirements.
Yeah, no, amazing. Thank you.
Are there any other questions from council members or topics that we want to bring up?
Yeah, I've got one more if I can jump back in.
Absolutely.
There was a post in sort of the depths of the forum. I'll post it in the chat, or so I'll read it out in its entirety. So it was in the authorizations validators forum post, and it's from an aptly named user called Validator. It says, "Hello, congratulations on the approval. We're a small US-based crypto development startup that is very interested in contributing to the success of Telcoin by becoming an early-stage alpha validator. We are an active node provider for other projects, so we're experienced in this area, and we feel we can make a significant contribution to the project's success by joining the network. After reading through the docs, it's clear that the GSMA MNO membership requirement may be a significant deterrent to attracting the most reliable and experienced infrastructure providers. Could a member of the Telcoin team please clarify the Telcoin GSMA membership requirement? Does it require full MNO membership status? Does sector or associate membership meet the validator requirement? We've researched investing in GSMA membership in prior fixed wireless infrastructure projects. However, the full cost on the low cap MNO membership may be prohibitively expensive, $15,000 a year for CapEx calculations. We appreciate any clarification the Telcoin team could provide. Thank you." Sorry, that was a mouthful.
Thanks for bringing that up. And it's actually wrote that out on my little list here to reply to them. So basically, Telcoin network, the prerequisite to be a validator on the network is to be a GSMA member, mobile network operator. So a telecom that uses a GSM technology. And of course, the reason for that is because we want to standardize blockchain around telecoms so that we can enable the formation of an alternative financial system that scales, that connects every mobile user in the world and scales. And so prohibiting non-MNOs from participating within the position of validator is the system's design. And so in this context, it's not a fit, despite them having the technological infrastructure to participate as a node, perhaps. Though I'd be curious relative to a mobile operator what that looks like. But regardless, yeah. So in that case, if they have the ways that they can participate are either as a staker on an existing Telcoin app, as a liquidity miner, or as an application developer. And part of the thinking around application developer, issuance, basically there's this really great opportunity where, similar to the game company, people who want to participate as an application developer, they become GSMA members. And so there's, it's a reverse versus GSMA members participating in a Telcoin association on the network. Having people building here to join the GSMA is, in every shape and form, a great form of reciprocity that I think the GSMA themselves would be thrilled to hear and see in the real world, and really sort of drive even further alignment and interest, and exhibition of the Telcoin Association system. So I think the way that I'm thinking about it generally is, we have phase one for stakers in place, and we're in parallel, building out this sort of initial issuance for developers and their overall allocation formula. I think there should basically be, for the way that we would structure this, for them to, if they wanted to participate as an application developer. At this point, I'm speaking hypothetically because I don't know precisely what app they would build if they were to do that role. But if they were, and for I think a certain number of developers, I think it's something like the first 10 developers to be approved and participate as an application developer should, regardless of if they're a GSMA member, we should issue them the amount that it costs to become a GSMA member in TEL, that they can use for staking. And so in that way, I think that's let's say it's 10 or it's 25, probably 10 probably makes more sense to start, or maybe 20 does. I guess that's 60 million at current prices or so, because it's a $15,000 membership. So basically that's the way that I'm thinking about it, is you have the, first X number of users receive as an initial incentive to build on the network, and to be used for staking, the USD value and TEL of a GSMA membership. And then after a certain threshold, let's say after 25, then we would reduce that initial issuance down to, let's say half of whatever a regular GSMA membership costs for staking, and so on and so forth, and with like a sort of halving approach as people continue to join the network and build on it. So to me, that's sort of, if they were to participate, they aren't, at least given current rules, able to be a validator. However, they can be an application developer, and I think subsidizing the cost of GSMA membership is a very good strategy for the overall adoption of the network and participation by GSMA members themselves. They've probably never seen anything like it.
Just to clarify, I'm not sure if you already answered my question. Is there a potential, if you think there's a good mutual two-way synergy, that you can, not just this company, but other maybe startups, assist them with obtaining GSMA membership?
Yep.
And that can be, well, just generally helping them, but also, giving them monetary assistance.
So yeah, the GSMA membership basically, I think, is an initial issuance to X first number of developers of application developers, to incentivize them to build on the network. In terms of helping them with applications, actually, I did that this week with someone just kind of looking at it and seeing if it was good to go. So that's in terms of facilitating that, we're definitely here to help. And by we, I mean the TAO. It's one of our primary focuses, ecosystem development. And so when new people come in, we want to facilitate them to get into this. And so I need to respond to that forum post. Just learn more, I guess, at this point. But that's something that I'm thinking about in terms of application developer issuance for the TAN Council to consider, and I'll bring it up at the next meeting.
Yeah, great question, Simon. Thanks for bringing that up. All right. Well, I don't see any other questions relevant to the association. EUSD is a Telcoin Holdings project. Really not sure how it's going to work. That's a little outside the scope of the association's responsibility. But if there's any other platform-related questions. All right. Well, I appreciate everybody showing up, participating. Thank you, audience members, for being present with us, listening along. I will be posting this to YouTube as well. I think council members, any last thoughts?
Spend money smarter.
Spend money smarter.
I think this could be a record platform council meeting length.
I think we've had longer, but it's getting up there for sure. So let's let everyone, especially our UK brothers in arms and sisters, get back to their regular social life.
Alrighty. Sounds great. Thanks, y'all. Appreciate it.
Thank
Cheers,
you.
guys.
Thanks, Grant. Thanks, everyone.